right, y'all, we are back because I want to delve into this a little bit. Okay, we're going on a trip in our favorite rocking ship, going through the sky. I know some of y'all think I am actually quite special. Um, I told y'all early on I'm a bit goofy. It's all good. All right, let's read this because this is again another great example at how these stories are framed. And when you get into the world of studying botany, of studying herbalism, you know the recognition is always given to these so-called pioneers. Okay, and it's quite literally too much. It's too much. All right, for thousands of years, most medical treatments relied on the use of plants. The ancient founders of science-based medicine were herbalists, people who studied and used plants, and who recorded their knowledge in scrolls and books. And then here we go. It always starts with some Greco-Roman, sometimes Egyptian person. And it's just like ridiculous. But when they get to write the stories, and then it's accepted into the lexicon as being truth and whatever else, this is what happens. This is coloniality. Everything gets relegated to, again, their unsung heroes, quote unquote, of conquest. And let me tell you something. Many of these people, and those who would come from them, rarely, if ever, abode by this. Practice this. As a matter of fact, the very systems that would come out of what they would discover, not only through harm and destruction, but because they didn't view those individuals as people or as worthy or as individuals or creatures or living organisms that could experience harm, then it doesn't apply. But the very systems that will come out of these so-called pioneers and the data that they compiled, because it wasn't like they were the inventors of anything, are by nature harmful. This is very subjective. And in the case of biomedicine, modern allopathic medicine of today, the predominant system exercised within this country, when you as a patient, the passive participant of this exchange, sign consent forms, you're agreeing to this, holding these people harmless. And so whatever they do in way of this has transformed in meaning and definition because of what you consented to. Which is why it really behooves us all to study to show ourselves approved, to educate and inform ourselves with regard to these systems and what it is that we are consenting to know our rights. You know? But anyway, this is very interesting to see. I started delving into this resource that we found in the last document exploration video. I'm trying to make this bigger, y'all. Heroic, at least, you know, in the herbal world, it tends to mean those particular plants or preparations that tend to have a smaller margin of therapeutic, oh goodness, it just escaped me, y'all. It literally just escaped my mind, of therapeutic action, essentially, and a higher risk of toxicity or poisoning potential, what have you. And I think this is somewhat accurate. You know, that, yeah, the European approach for sure tends to definitely be more heroic in response to things, and even, you know, adapting a lot of the surgical techniques and what have you tend to be quite extreme, right? And put in place of preventative measures prematurely. I think, you know, surgery really should be the last resort in most cases, and in some cases it's often the first option that you're presented with. I mean, in my own experience in navigating the field of obstetrics and gynecology, you know, it was very interesting to experience that. And here you have, you know, most OBGYNs being surgical professionals, this offering of a solution that is surgery forward. And even when it came to the follow-up and looking into alternative solutions, still very surgery forward. And then by the fourth or fifth appointment, now it's medication, now it's something else. So it just transformed. And I've experienced that with, you know, some of the clients that I've served as well. And if you're not willing to be an advocate for yourself, if you're not willing to have the tough conversations and get uncomfortable and take the time, which I know we, you know, everyone's not afforded with that opportunity, but to see numerous licensed professionals within a particular specialty, if you're not willing to go through the gauntlet in that sense, which it is a trying experience for sure, trust me, I understand, then more than likely you're going to be settling on an option or an offering that could have been avoided potentially, possibly. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand that these professionals need to continue to hone and perfect their skills. They need to continue to have opportunity to work at their, what is that called? Oh, y'all, it's on the tip of my tongue. What is that called? Dexterity. you know, and all the things. And if they can do that on a consenting, living, breathing, ill patient, that's the creme de la creme right there. You know, I mean, they've got cadavers back there, trust and believe. And many of those bodies, you know, even sold to universities and these institutions and these hospitals by grave robbers. Yeah, there are literal markets, people making a living, families prospering by means of stealing the remains of many of our dead family members. Deals with the funeral homes. And yeah, y'all ain't know? It gets dark. Still going on today. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you understand holistically, and that's really just scratching the surface, what makes up the business that is biomedicine, and how, you know, for a very, 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 very long time, this has been the way of their world, as horrifying and shocking as many of these discoveries are, which we'll delve into everything that I mentioned in more detail in other parts of the series. It's not surprising. It's not, you know, it's just they do a really great job at creating distractions and ensuring that basic needs are not met and that there's a level of struggle, and employing different forms of warfare, especially when it comes to our environment, agriculture, food, what have you, geared toward specific populations of people. It's very intricate and meticulous, strategic. So that, you know, your focus is on survival, getting from hour to hour, day to day, let alone being able to sit in the rooms and be a part of the conversations or have access to the spaces and places and to think upon what's going on. And it is also true that ultimately what we fight against, what we battle against, are principalities and powers in high places, not just in this realm, many of which tend to be housed outside of the United States, but in another realm altogether as well. And if the way that we have found, which again, there has been much success in that for many of our people for a long period of time, but if the way that we have found to combat a lot of that is through the employing of lesser spirits, as we saw in the video regarding hoodoo, in our ethnobotanical and healing systems, that is not truly how we become victorious, how we ultimately heal. I don't believe that. And if it were the case, it would have happened. Because again, when you understand demonology, when you understand the hierarchical structure of all of that, and trust me, those root workers and conjurers and what have you understood that, were very mindful of that and who they would call upon and not call upon. Right? As we read in the book of Job, Satan himself roaming about to and fro through the earth goes before the Most High God, in many cases waiting for instruction. They also tremble. And so we do well to do the same. These powers know what it is. Many of us don't. Nor do we understand truly our power through Christ and the Holy Spirit to the Father, creator of all things, who is still on his throne. Our access to the source, ruler of every realm, to be able to call upon, and whose power we are able to employ for our protection, for our precluding, like what was transferred over to Noah and then to Shem. These spirits, from their seductions and from their evil and wickedness. The answer to a lot of what plagues our people lies in nature. And they know that. These powers know and understand that, which is why they sought early on and have been in continual attempts at conquering and bioprospecting and stealing back a lot of what they sold in the first place. And again, we'll delve into Esau's story at another time. I want to make sure I compile all the right resources and make sure that that's a very holistic breakdown. But yeah. And so, yeah, through the perverting of the sciences and these skillful art forms would come the creation of quote unquote medicine systems that would totally transform this knowledge and make it into something extremely harmful. And I mean, you kind of got to give them their props. You know what I mean? Like, my goodness, how cunning you have to be to tell a lie and then create a system in such a way that depending on how a person engages with it, renders this truth. Whoa. Do y'all understand? You know? And I mean, if that ain't the legal system, I don't know what is. Every loophole, listen. Yeah. It's like, you know, just smoke screens. And that's why I say the system is so fragile, because much of it is built off of illusion. Nothing is as it seems. And nothing that you're actually seeing with your physical eyes, for the most part, is accurate or very real. A lot of it is imitation of life, of what was, of what is. But like we heard from Dr. DeGrue and many other scholars, and like you can just kind of infer through wisdom, through the power of the pen, baby. If it's in a book, and we profess it to be science, to be valid, and the people that we're talking to and the people that, you know, wield the power agree, and your folks are subjugated, who's going to say otherwise? And I kind of like the language in this. It's funny to me. And I can appreciate, you know, some acknowledgement here. Again, it's always important, even when we see this, to start making distinction and understanding that Black Aborigine or indigenous people would fit into this, being native to the land, as well as, you know, many of us foundational Black American. But it's like in this time, especially during chattel slavery in North America, much of what the medical system would become here, the tactics that were employed by European physicians and practitioners were torturous. But again, it was okay to do on property that were people, right? And to experiment in that way. So this didn't apply. Even though, and I can definitely admit that, many of their people, especially white women, experienced grave harm. And that, in the grander scheme, does not take away from the harm that they've perpetuated and are responsible for either. So I definitely do not want at all to paint them as any sort of victim. So sorry, but we've had enough of that, and things need to be situated properly. And unfortunately, because of your choices for centuries, whatever sympathy you would have garnered is no more. It's no more. Because many of those same women will go on to then harm Black women and children. But a lot of it was bloodletting, cupping, these few torturous techniques. There was no anesthesia really back then. Well, there wasn't at all, but there weren't many heroic plants employed to numb or palliate or temper whatever sort of experience that they were putting our people through. And so their techniques were rooted in suffering. It was torture. And as we read in the WPA narratives, in a lot of them, there's confession that much of that did not work. It was unsuccessful. And so our ancestors learned to turn to the Most High God, and also back to the earth, back to the knowledge that informed, to a degree, much of this stuff in the first place. Can't find where we read that initially. Right here, yeah. And then went on to change and become something totally different. And we see, you know, a lot of professionals in this field and the COOs and whatever, the heads of this organization and this company, confessing and admitting to the fact that, yeah, we've been established for 175 years and haven't cured a damn thing. Huh? How does that work? Billions upon trillions of whatever to go into researching. Huh? How does that work? Oh, it was never the goal. That was never the goal, to cure anything. Huh? No, how would we continue to profit? How would the business run? How would we pay our employees? How would their children be able to stay in private school and build on the land that's been stolen and soiled with the blood? No, how can they do that? How can they do that? If people get cured? What? Silly you. No. Until this day, people still subject themselves to whatever product is coming out hot off the press and lining the shelves of your local CVS. Because again, our people perish for a lack of knowledge. And thus you have the technological age where, again, them understanding that, very cunning, very smart, say, cool. Well, if they are awakening to the reality that it is knowledge that will bring an answer and be a key to many things, then we've got to inundate them with so much quote unquote knowledge and information that, and again, much like we see in the legal world, drown them in paperwork, hide it in a book, write it in a different language, put it in a museum, put it in a university, all the places where we know they are the minority, where there's restricted access. And on platforms and in places where there is access, we've got to flood it with bots and misinformation so that they'll be none the wiser. So that they'll have to spend hour upon waking hour combing through, purchasing one page at a time to find just keywords. And if they don't have the network of knowledge or range of context and information exposure to piece together all the puzzles they might find, they'll be none the wiser. You know? Yeah, very strategic. Very, very, very clever, very cunning. And again, they aren't doing this out of their own power. They've got principalities and powers in higher places assisting, leading the charge, that they sacrifice to, that they bow to, that they pay homage to, and worse, daily. Call it conspiracy all you want. Go read the files. And that's just one case, one scenario. Mind you, this stuff has been going on for millennia. Like, come on, people, wake up. Shouldn't too much surprise us anymore. Truly. The pen, unlike any other weapon in the world, has been and continues to be the most destructive instrument. Nowadays, the keyboard. But the one thing that saves us in all of this are the rules of their engagement. That in one way or another, they have to incorporate a level of truth and confession and profession of what it is that they plan to do, have done, are going to do. And that's why I said in that journal entry that I wrote that as he writes, he exposes himself. In his efforts to hide and to change the narrative, glimmers of truth are left behind. But we got to start opening the books and reading. Anyway, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Y'all be blessed. We'll be back.